Okay. So, that feels better after lunch, doesn't it?
What a relief, you see things all in a new light now.
Yes. Yeah. So, where were we? I think we were talking about, you were saying that the book kind of has different, almost genres in them, that it goes from a romance into a murder mystery.
Yes, it does. It sort of shifts and slides from one type of scenario to another. But one of the ones that interested me, that I got sort of deeply immersed in, really, was the courtroom scene. And I don't quite know why, but that really had a certain pull. Which means to me it must have had an underlying kind of emotional content to it, even though it was a description of not a court case, but of a coroner's impression of everything that had happened. And you set the scene beautifully in that. I
thank you.
Yes, it was really nice writing, and sort of very easy to get in on it and feel what each character was feeling, and that mixture of friction between people in that particular scene.
Yeah.
The different descriptions of James.
It was harrowing. That scene is based
that the
on...
hardest thing to write in the book, do you think?
That's an interesting question.
Just wondering.
I can't lie, that was difficult to write. It was very difficult to write because it was very raw. I wanted to write almost a kind of an account of what had happened. And so that was based entirely on truth.
And perhaps this is what works, actually, because you are describing what is a palpably real feeling in that coroner's courtroom.
Right. Yes, because I was sitting in it, experiencing it, you know.
Yeah.
And I wanted it to stay true to exactly what happened. And that's why, even though the book is for the most part fiction, there are parts in it that's absolutely based in the truth. I mean, obviously I changed names to protect people and stuff, but it is based in the truth. And yes, it was very difficult to write because there were so many unanswered questions. There were so many things that I still feel energy around, that I still feel that I didn't bring closure.
Yes. And I think that's what you expected in that scene. Yeah. You expect closure.
You do.
And you don't get it.
And you can't get it.
And it throws open the book to more questions. Yes. In fact, it's a kind of it is a mini murder mystery. It's right at the heart of the book.
Kind of, yes. Absolutely, yes.
Something without closure.
It
something
is.
that represents a lot of suffering.
Yes.
And grief.
And life. Because in life there is no closure, really. Not really. But I also wanted to show what happens around that story, how that impacts on the people around that story. And you are right, that is at the heart of the book. That is the reason I wrote the book. It's for that.
Oh, so my feeling was correct
Your feeling
when
is
I was
correct.
reading it.
Yes, and it is a heavy scene.
Yeah. It's another quest for truth as well.
It is a quest for
inside
truth.
the book. It's trying to strip away.
Yes.
And trying to find out what has really happened here.
Even though you can't get it.
And it's not quite. It's almost there, and it's not quite there.
It hovers at the edge of your thinking, of your mind, of being brought into light, and yet it doesn't quite happen.
Yes.
But I think that that's how life presents itself to us. Often we find ourselves in situations where you feel something is coming to light, there's an illumination, and it doesn't quite
get there. Yes.
And so you never know.
And is that because not enough of the right questions are being asked, or is that because there isn't enough material to run with? This was close to real life, very close to the real life experience that you had.
I think both.
How do you feel about
I do. I think both. I think not enough information to not enough information to bring closure in the book, certainly, but absolutely not enough information to bring closure in life. And then also, I wanted to keep it like that, though. I didn't want to manufacture a kind of closure.
No, because I think
that
you
would
have
not
lost the authenticity
exactly.
if you had done that.
Yeah, and so I feel okay with it being the way it is.
Yes.
I have had readers contacting me saying, "Well, what actually happened?"
Yes.
And the answer is I don't know, and we'll
Because
never know.
Behind all of this, of course, is a question about whether the testimony of the character Lee was actually correct or not.
Or not. And so, of
and
course...
again, this is played out in real life as well.
Yes, very much so.
How correct was it? What could we believe?
Yes.
What had been scripted beforehand?
Yes. Yes, because...
And I think that's quite an interesting subject. Lee.
Exactly.
His story, his take on the reality of that. Somebody died in his flat.
Yes.
Who he'd only met the night
before. Yes.
He was already a very complex character with quite a difficult past.
Yes.
Drugs involved in his history, but not in the same way as James's.
Yeah, exactly.
But certainly quite a lot of incriminations within his life and a past history that would lead you to think that he was could be incriminated very easily, but had somehow managed to avoid the net.
Yeah, yeah. So it is interesting, and so you're right. I mean, I'll come back to your question in a minute, but as a result of having written this book, which I thought would be a one-off, and in fact I never thought it would be published. I never thought it would make it out to other people to read. It was only because I allowed some friends to see bits and pieces of it, and they persuaded me to take it further that I did it. But I thought that would be it. But as a result of having written this book and having all these unanswered questions that hounds you, Lee's story in particular, I find is haunting me. I wake up at night with sentences from his character. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's true. And so I have started writing bits and pieces. There are other books that's going to come out of this now. So I'm going to write James's story, and that book is called Legend of the Phoenix. I'm going to write Ariana's story, because there's a whole other story there.
Oh, yes.
Which is unexpected.
Yeah.
So that is a planned
because
book.
of course in your book Lee is much of an instrument of fate, isn't he?
Absolutely.
A sort of angel of death.
Almost. Exactly.
He's an instrument rather than a fully rounded person, I think, in the book.
Yeah, because and he's got the mental capacity of a 4-year-old in a way.
A sort of questionable mentality. Questionable as to his ability and his understanding.
Yes. Which is
exactly why you can't.
Sad as well.
And also that's why you can't pin anything
on him. He's incapable of probably even expressing what he thinks and feels if he understands the magnitude of what had happened. And so his book is something, as I say, that's haunting me. So I've started writing bits, and shall I read you a little bit of what I wrote? Just so you can see little bits. So this is just the beginning, sort of just, the very beginning of the first chapter. So I'll just read you a little bit. It says, I was born on 15 May 1975. I knew something was wrong. I had known it for a while. The knowing lived inside me, without pictures, without words. But there were sounds. My mother's sounds, her voice, and other voices, deeper, more scary. My mother was scared. I don't know when I first heard the voices and felt the feelings, but not long after, I felt an enormous squeeze. It was not like the squeeze my mother gave me when I could feel her warm, fuzzy feelings of love towards me. This squeeze was much harder, much stronger. The squeezes did not stop. They became more frequent, one after another. My mother's sounds became loud then, and I became afraid that something had happened to us. The squeezes, meanwhile, continued to be stronger and stronger. Suddenly I found myself moving down a very narrow place. My body was squeezed even more. My shoulders were squashed up towards my head. There were many other voices. The unfamiliar voices sounded scared or excited. My body moved even further down the narrow place. Somehow, I knew that I would see my mother's face very soon. Rough hands grabbed my head and pulled me quickly through the narrow place. Bright lights hit my eyes. I could not focus on anything, but I knew the skin I was laid on belonged to my mother. I could hear her sounds. She sounded happy. She made cooing sounds. Her soft hands touched me all over as though she was checking that all of me was there. My body felt cold, and there were strange, pungent smells all around me. But that's the beginning of, because I wanted to show that his mindset from the beginning of his book.
That's pre-birth mindset, isn't
Yes.
it? Yes. Is there a suggestion that he's not right?
Yes.
Very
And I think he knew it. He knows it.
Mm-hmm.
He knows it. I mean, to get back to the healing touch, I had a few opportunities to speak to the person who became the character of Lee in the book. And it became abundantly clear to me that he understood that there was something wrong with him. He knew he wasn't like other people. And that, to me, denotes that there is a kind of intelligence behind the fact that he is mentally perhaps not fully developed.
Yes, that's probably a good way to put it.
You know, I feel that quite strongly, and it saddened me to know that he knew it, because with that knowing must come a kind of pain and frustration and a feeling of being outcast, of being not accepted in society. And so in the courtroom case scene where the coroner was trying to calm him down when he got excited because he thought he'd be in trouble, and the coroner kept saying to him, "You are not in any trouble, you are fine. This is not," because it's not a court of law, of course. I found that very telling because of the conversation I had with him before.
Yes.
You know, to see that he knew that something was wrong and that he would be blamed. And I wondered if that was part of his life.
History of his life.
That was happening over and over and over again. It's almost like things happened around him, bad things happened around him,
yes.
And he had no control. But he seemed the one to be caught because he wasn't quick enough to think himself out of the situation or get himself away from the situation. And I'm not excusing anything that happened.
No.
And we don't know what happened for real.
But what you're saying, I think, is that he has a fate all his own.
Absolutely.
And he can't really escape it.
Right. And I find that excruciatingly sad. And that's why I felt compelled to write about him next.
There'll be a lot of material in there, I think.
Enormous amounts of material.
Inside that story.
Definitely, because I know quite a bit about him. I had a few opportunities to meet him and to talk to him and to get out
You're
of
trying to get beyond what is I suppose, could be aberration.
Right.
To the person below.
Yeah.
And
to the truth.
Again, it comes back to
The truth.
trying to get to the truth, yes, indeed, of what Lee actually is.
Yeah, exactly, what he is, because apart from being human, what is he? What is he?
Of somebody else's imagination.
Yeah.
Is he a one-time friend of James? Is he a person who turns once the sun goes down?
Right.
Has he got two sides?
Yes.
There are lots of questions.
There's a lot of questions. I mean, one of the things I do know about him is that he is schizophrenic and that he had, his own drugs to help with that, which added to the drugs that James took, and which added, to the fact that he died. But so that is something to explore, I think, in his book. And yeah, it's haunting me. Just I wake up with these random messages from him.
I think because it's unanswered.
Yes.
That's why it haunts you.
Yeah.
If you had a closure on that, you just say, well, this is what happened, and put it away in a file, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But there's another thing waiting to be written there, for sure, and people will want to hear what his story is.
Well, I hope they do, because I personally think it's fascinating. But as I say, I mean, when I wrote The Healing Touch, I didn't write it for other people. I wrote it for me. I wrote it as a way to express the impact of James's death on the people around him.
So it was a catharsis.
It was a cathartic experience, and also a record of what had happened.
That's
very
what I
much
found very valuable about it.
Did you? Yeah, because you knew.
I knew quite a bit about
Stephen.
the real life story.
Yeah. So.
And the fact that you had collated all this stuff, so that there was a sequence of events that could be understood. And once you've done that and you've collected a lot of information together and cross-referred it, you start to see more.
It's like you are looking down on what actually happened, because when you're in it, I know there's that saying, isn't it? You can't see the forest for the trees, but you really couldn't. I couldn't.
Yes. No.
Now that I step back and I wrote the book and I can see, it's like you're looking down on it, going, "Oh, I see. This event almost had to happen for that to happen, for that to happen." You can almost see it, can't you? It doesn't make it any easier. But
yet there's still very disparate elements inside the book. So all of things were happening all together. If just one had been happening, that would have been enough.
Yes.
But if we're to believe you that it was all, as much as it has happened.
Well, the real story, yes. I mean, obviously there's fantasy, fiction elements in it. But the actual story,
really, everything
James's story,
more or less happening simultaneously, wasn't it?
Exactly, yeah. But I think that's how it happens for people in life. Things happen together, all together. I don't think it's never really like, okay, this happened, then this happened, then this. It's only afterwards you can look at it and go, oh, that's what happened. But at the time it feels like it's, imploding or exploding, whichever way. Yeah. That's how it feels. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do. But as I say, I wrote it mostly for myself. I never imagined that I would publish it or that it would be read by other people who didn't know me. I didn't think that would happen. It was only because I read it to a few friends or they asked me what I was doing and how I was, I'm obviously concerned because I was in such a dark place after Stephen died, that I allowed them to read parts of it, and they were very encouraging. So, it's their fault really that it's published. But okay, so the other question you asked me was what was the most difficult thing to write?
Yes, yeah.
The courtroom scene was extremely difficult to write. I can't deny that, because of the fact that there were so many unanswered questions, and
And that must have been a test of recall as well.
It was.
Sequence, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened when?
But because it was so, I can almost say it was disturbing in a way that fundamentally almost kind of derail you. It was easy to recall, very easy to recall, because it was like one thing after the next, and you sat there thinking, this is so surreal. This is so surreal. Because there were all these questions about the many drugs, and nobody asked, why was there so many drugs? Why was it prescribed?
Yes, the basic things weren't being asked.
There were so many, and nobody asked the question. And of course, we weren't allowed to ask the question. And I found it extremely difficult to deal with, and I still do. I mean, I still think, what? I felt like I was in a dream, a very lucid dream, but it was very dreamlike. Because afterwards you come almost back down to earth thinking, did that really happen? Was that even real?
Yes. And
it was more real than anything, because it's a once in a lifetime chance. It's gone. It'll never come back.
Yes.
You can't change anything in it.
And nobody tells you that before you walk in.
Yeah, I mean, you know it here, but you don't know it, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
And it's so silly that you...
It's only in retrospect that you what was all that about?
I know, it's really bizarre.
And why there were so many avenues closed, so many books were shut before anybody could say
anything, yes. That's what I'm saying, it was disturbing in a sort of way that almost derailed you, because it was so not right.
I found it fatalistic in that sense.
I found a lot of
like somebody else, somewhere else, had decided that at this point you would come to an end, and that this question would not ever be answered, and the book would be shut, and you wouldn't be able to
very disconcerting,
probe into it again. It almost begs that feeling of, no, why not go and open it up again?
And have a look.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why not open this up again? Because every time we open it up, we see something different. And perhaps the reader will feel that.
Yeah, of course we do.
I felt that the second time I read it. I
thought,
there are something. A few things here.
There's something there. But it's interesting because, but isn't that how life is? Things happen,
life
and you
is
only
absolutely riddled with injustice and unanswered questions.
Exactly.
And why do extremely angelic and beautiful people just get decimated by some roguish incident at the hands of fate, it seems. Of course we know it's not fate, but whatever you'd like to call it. And disappear from the world where they're needed.
Or when we think they're
needed.
When we
think they're needed.
Yeah. It's
and
true.
What are the workings behind that?
Exactly.
But
it's a mystery.
And then when you close the book, you're back on the romantic, sexy thing again.
Well, I think you had to bring it full circle, don't you? You had to,
You have to. So that sort of stands at the back of the book like a...
Yeah, because I think life continues, no matter the loss, no matter the enormous grief. There comes a point where you understand that life continues. It has to. You're here. Unless you take your own life.
Yes.
You have no option but to continue. And so I think Isabelle is particularly fortunate that she found someone that she could be sharing this huge special love with, because I'm not sure that happens to very many people.
No.
That out of such a tragedy can come such incredible goodness. I don't know if that happens often. I would like to think it does, which is why I wrote it like that.
Yes.
I wanted to leave it as optimistic as I could.
Yeah.
Because of the tragedy of what happened to James, to Stephen. But I just wanted to add that, yes, it is the reason I wrote the book, because I felt very, very, very and I still do, very strongly that if Stephen was famous, this would have been handled very differently. And maybe I'm completely wrong, okay? But I just feel that. And it's almost like I wanted to put it out there for people to experience it for themselves, the injustice of it.
Yeah. Well, another thing that I found very interesting, I don't know if you agree with this, but you've got several relationships in the book, but none of them really eclipse each other. Now, though you have your joyous sex scene at the end, and everybody's thinking, I wish that was me.
Oh, well, I wish it for everyone. I wish for people to have that love.
This is why I'm saying it's a unique feature of your book.
Right.
Is the fact that the meaningful relationships are all equally meaningful. So that even though you leave on a certain note, the middle of the book is equally, that relationship with James is not destroyed. It's equally important. It's still there.
Yes.
You're still aware of its presence, even at the end of the book.
Right. That's great that
you're still aware of the husband as a loving husband, a loving presence, right through the book.
Right.
Nobody is trashed and put into a box.
Yes.
You don't say, that's the end of that.
Yes.
Onward and upwards. You're moving those three strands together simultaneously right through the book, and I think it's quite a feat that you don't manage to, relegate any into an inferior position. They have equal status.
But they do, and I think,
which in lots of people's lives, if they had, three great loves like that happening in the same, let's say in the same year or whatever, same time frame, one would take precedence and the others would suffer.
Maybe, but I'm not sure. Do you think that? Because I think in life we have relationships that's important to us for different reasons, equally important to us for different reasons. We talked earlier about the fact that no one person can fulfill all your needs, and therefore you have different friends for different aspects of who you are. And so I feel that it is more than possible to love more than one person equally, but in a different way. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things I think wanted to show.
It is, and it is one of the things that comes out of the book. And
oh, that's great. I achieved it then. Great.
So you've done it.
I've done it. Yes. But to come back to a question you asked earlier about what was the most difficult thing to write. Yes, the courtroom scene was difficult to write, but I think the thing that was the most difficult to write was Stephen's funeral, James's funeral. That was excruciatingly difficult because it doesn't come across so in the book, I know, but I relived everything. And in fact I couldn't write it like I did the rest of the book. I couldn't write it every day.
No.
Weeks went by, I think a month. I started painting my flat. I had to do something different. I just started painting the walls. I had to do something different. I couldn't deal with it straight away.